Hello, my dear friends and family. Captain Starsky joins the chat. I've got a new cap today. How are you, my dear friends? Welcome to our traditional stream where we cancel Russianism as much as possible because this is the proper thing to do, right? So we have several updates. Some of them are actually very interesting. Katya, hello, Katya is not sleeping. We have sleeping snake there in the chat. Jamie and Ethan and thin lines. All right, it's so good that all the good people are here. Matt, hello, Matt. Always good to see you. Let's check out some of the recent updates and have some coffee, shall we? First of all, the Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, called Khartia, showed a footage of their soldiers installing a flag on the recently captured town hall in Kupyansk, recently captured by Russians. It was liberated. The Kupyansk town is that very place where Russians decided to make a one-way trip to the Kupyansk downtown, and then they started producing those cringe videos saying that they're just clearing the remains of the withdrawing Ukrainian troops until they found themselves completely, fucked in Kupyansk. And Kupyansk is a bit bigger than Pokrovsk, by the way, just so you understand, because Russians will be saying like, fuck Kupyansk, at least we have this huge megapolis of Pokrovsk almost there, alright, almost surrounded and taken. So Pokrovsk is approximately 11 square miles and Kupyansk is approximately 12, so they're like kind of the same. That's again so you could understand the situation. So we can see Ukrainian guardsmen installing the flag on the recently liberated town hall. That is so good. 2025 became the deadliest year for civilians in Ukraine, according to the report published by the United Nations, by the OHCHR. During 2025, 2,514 civilians were killed by Russian weapons, Russian missiles, bombs, and shaheds. Also, 12,142 were wounded, and that is more than 30% higher rate than in 2024 and 70% more than in 2023. 63% out of those people, or those civilians, either died or were wounded on the frontline territory. You can see that the losses among Ukrainian civilians are basically split. Roughly half of them, were either killed or wounded on the front line, while another half was emerged due to the Russian strikes. And for example, one of the deadliest attacks was attack on Ternopil on 19th of November. Due to the attack on residential high-rise building, 38 Ukrainian civilians died, including 9 children. In 2025, we can see this tremendous increase in losses among civilian population in Ukraine. That was the year when the biggest peacemaker in the world, Donald Trump, became 47th president of the United States. I'm not blaming him directly, but there's always a connection, right? This is something very, very interesting that Bloomberg actually published yesterday. According to their data, starting 2021, Iran sold missiles and drones to Russia, including all of the drone producing technology and stuff like that, worth almost $4 billion. Again, as we can see in 2021, Russia started buying different ballistic missiles, also anti-air missiles from Iranian terrorists, from the terrorist regime of Khamenei, and they bought those missiles worth approximately $2.7 billion in 2021 while preparing the invasion of Ukraine. Again, different pro-Russian propagandists will be telling you that Russia had to interfere, Russia had to intrude to save its Russian-speaking population of Ukraine. Right, but at the same time, you can see that Russian terrorists were buying those since 2021. They bought thousands of Shahed drones. They also bought technology, the blueprints for producing Shahed 136, and they also bought all sorts of ballistic and anti-air missiles. Again, just for your information. And again, we know that Putin already in 2001 he said to President Bush that Ukraine should not exist, it should become part of Russia. So basically Russia started preparing for invasion of Ukraine basically 14 years before the hybrid invasion started, and almost 20 years, more than 20 years before the full-scale invasion began. That is why everyone who supports Russian terrorism basically eats my ass. While Russians are attacking Ukrainian residential buildings, because yesterday there was some of the massive attacks conducted on Ukraine, we're talking about 300 drones and 18 missiles launched at Ukraine. Ukrainians keep striking Russian military facilities. Yesterday in Taganrog, good Ukrainian drones and missiles attacked the terror Russian factory called Atlant Aero. This building right here is the building where the Russian terrorists produce different equipment and components for Russian drones, such as Molnia and others, and it was hit yesterday. And that's very interesting, by the way, because if you take a look at it, all right, let's just zoom out just a bit. Russians cannot repair their hospitals and schools because they don't have enough money for that, and basically they don't care. At the same time, they build plenty of military facilities where those money are directed, and they are basically getting burned by Ukrainian drones. If somebody tells you that Putin is like, the strategic genius, that he's like a very, very powerful ruler, and stuff like that he's smart, well, basically that's where he burns the money of his taxpayers right there, all right, in all those facilities that are being constantly fucked by good Ukrainian drones. They all burn right there. That is not Russian factory burning, my friends. That's literally Russian rubles are burning on your screens. That one can be actually a memorial to Putin's ingenuity. And speaking of true sensations, true scandals, all right, in Russia, scandals, intrigues, and everything else, there on your screens you can see one of the Russian propagandists. His name is Yuri Podolyaka. He's very, very known in Russia. He's widely known in the Terrorist Federation. And yesterday, for some unknown reason, he actually admitted that Russia lost 820,000 Russian invaders in Ukraine. 400,000 of them were eliminated. I believe that this number is approximately legit, considering that he didn't call the number of Russians that are considered lost in action. We can have probably some couple 100,000 Russians that are also dead but considered lost in action. Again, remember the video from a Russian recon terrorist from so-called Española private military company who said that they would just go and massively collect the Russian IDs from the Russian bodies and then just bring them to their commander, who would just use those IDs as a firewood, all right? So I believe that those numbers are kind of legit, kind of trustworthy, because they kind of correspond to what we have today. So Russians are talking about 820,000 Russians lost, either dead or wounded. Again, you can see that the number is basically 50-50, all right? That tells you probably a lot about the Russian medical services, about Russian combat medicine and all that shit. ASMAR's cords instead of tourniquets. Those cords were designed like more than 100 years ago, and they are still using those. Maybe he didn't include the losses from DPR and LPR. Could be, but on the other hand, come on, like they de jure, they consider them parts of their terrorist empire. De facto, they literally use them as cannon fodder, throwing them into the meat assaults. They just don't give a slightest damn. So who knows? But to me, that number seems approximately there, all right? Approximately there. Seems like too optimistic, in my personal opinion, but looks approximately there. Nebenzia, the terror Russian representative in the United Nations, stated that the Russian terrorists will keep solving the issue, all right, solving Ukrainian issue, using their military force until Kiev agrees to the Russian demands. Again, currently we're working very, very hard on that peace plan for Ukraine, security guarantees and everything else. Of course, it's very, very good. But the fact is, Russians will not stop attacking. That is a statement from Russian constant representative in the United Nations. We all understand that Russians will not agree to those options in this peace plan, and they will also not agree to a ceasefire, because all those things are not in the Russian strategy. Their strategy is to literally keep pushing, keep burning Russian population, and try to occupy the whole Ukraine as long as it takes. Maybe 8 years, maybe 10 years, they will keep attacking if nothing changes in the terrorist federation. That's literally the most realistic prediction you can find out there, all right? That is literally the Russian plan, and of course, considering the fact that Russians are also planning to invade European countries by the end of the decade. This one is kind of cringy. That is a bill proposed by the Republican Randy Fine. He proposed a bill on annexation of Greenland and granting the island the status of the state of the USA. I don't know how to comment on this one. Please do it yourself there in the chat, all right? I would really, really like to know your personal opinion on that. My opinion on that, you basically know, you don't invade your allies, you don't invade sovereign countries, you don't attack your NATO friends if you are a NATO country, because this makes you an absolute freaking degenerate and asshole. That's my personal opinion. I would never do that if I was Donald Trump, but thank God I am not Donald Trump. According to Iran Human Rights, this is the Human Rights Protection Organization. According to the Iran Human Rights, 648 protesters were shot during the mass protest in Iran. The Human Rights Protection Organization states that because of the informational blockage, because of the internet shortages, in the country, the true scale of the strategy is, of course, much bigger. They actually say that the real number of protesters eliminated by the terrorist regime of Khamenei can be actually more than 6,000 people. The internet shutdown that Khamenei introduced, like he always does during the protests, helps to actually cover up all the crimes committed by his so-called Islamic guards and other criminals supporting Khamenei's regime. Actually, the situation is very, very dangerous and very threatening, because according to the internet service NetBlocks, the national internet traffic in Iran decreased to almost 0% since 8th of January. That's literally 5 days ago. But we also have some good updates. According to the monitoring channels, several minutes ago, 2 drones attacked the Greek tanker Delta Harmony in the Black Sea, not far from Novorossiysk. That is the news as of this morning, 8 a.m. And the fact that this tanker was flying Greek flag doesn't make it Greek, of course, because we remember that Bella-1 / Marinera tanker, the Venezuelan tanker that was captured by the US Special Forces. They were flying Venezuelan flag, then they were flying Russian flag, like they change flags. Donald Trump changes vibes, like literally they don't care. So that is a good update, and also considering that this tanker was docked in the Novorossiysk, the same Novorossiysk, by the way, where Ukrainian subsea baby sent the Russian submarine, the Huilo class Russian submarine, to the destination fact, as brother Ozyman would say. Besides that, we can see that the Russian war is taking its price, and also the Russian budget is already suffering because of that. According to different monitoring channels, for example, in the Terror Russian Republic of Khakassia, there were delays in paying salaries. We're talking about the Forensic Bureau, the Psychiatric Clinic, the Center for Blood Donations, the Medical Information Analytics Center, 112 service. That is literally emergency service. You were asking about this one. Police, EMS, and everything like that. Philharmonium, and also one of the colleges in Abakan. Those people working in all those establishments still didn't receive their salary for December 2025, and also among them are ministers and leaders of different Republican establishments and different Republican state employees in that Republic of the Terrorist State. In the end of December, because of the debt, the accounts of almost 3 dozens of schools and kindergartens were blocked because they cannot pay for different communal resources, fuel, and provision. On the other hand, my dear friends, that is exactly what the Russian terrorists deserve, all right? Basically, they voluntarily decided to give up their country to the hands of a bloody dictator, a bunch of oligarchs and bandits, and that is something very, very much expected. But at the same time, that is also a very good example to all of us, all right? A very good lesson to all other countries of the world, that if you allow thugs and bandits to rule your country, in the end, basically that's what you have. Okay. I thought the Russian ruble got paid every 5 weeks due to the life expectancy being 4 weeks maximum. Yeah, that's a good one, absolutely. Good morning, my friends. Good to see you. Night all. Just wanted to stop by and say hi and give the stream a like before crawling in the bed. Good night, Evie, my friend. Have a nice rest. What was the name of the guest you interviewed yesterday? D.W. Phillips. You can find him basically anywhere. D.W. Phillips is a constitutional attorney in the United States. He's also a filmmaker, a film producer, and he's in the same team that made Kyiv of Mine series. Please check it out. Just want to say thank you for helping me maintain my optimism while the world burns. Much love from Texas. Much love to Texas, my friend. Much love to the legendary people of Texas. My first English song, the first song in English that I learned was "Oh Give Me a Home," that I learned from the CD with the traditional Texan songs. I know that it's shared with some other states, but anyways, Trump is going to rip the rest of White House down for Putin too. What can I say? On the other hand, all the voters who voted for Trump can now see him happily dancing in that huge ballroom. That will make them extremely happy. What sleep I get, about 3 hours if I'm lucky. Same here, my friend. Literally, if you run on coffee, that's what you get. But on the other hand, sleeping is so mainstream. Sleeping is literally it's ridiculous. We don't respect sleeping here, all right? On this channel, we oppose sleeping. It sucks. While you sleep, instead of that, you could actually do something useful, make more videos, make more content, make more research, do something awesome, go and help people. And instead of that, we literally spend 1/3 of our lives on sleeping. It's like me. I have missed the food section again. We're not there yet, my friend. Little joke to start the day. What's the relationship between the pound, the ruble, and the dollar? A pound of rubles is worth... Nice one. I like it. Good Ukrainian sunflowers would not accept as fertilizer. Trump made good by good Ukrainian drones, as Trump is not even good for oh my god. I don't want to literally talk about that individual. I think we should make some kind of Trump-free days of this channel. Please let me know if you agree on that. Because, people say that energy vampires, some of us are like that, like energy vampires, they require attention and stuff like that because they need it to survive. Most probably Trump is like one. I don't know. I can say that my whole company, by the way, back in my brigade, was literally made of energy vampires, because in the end of the day, I would just fall in my bed and fall asleep immediately, after all those, cringy requests. Why are we running wearing armored vests? My little legs hurt and stuff like that. Yes, please unban the name. Just call him the orange guy. Just Jesus. We gotta do something. Because on the other hand, that is actually what narcissistic people enjoy, when other people talk about them like 24/7. That's something that actually makes them very, very happy. That's something that makes them understand their importance or impotence. I have no idea. My little legs are... Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's when you serve in the army, there's always people like that. My little legs hurt. My little eyes are shutting because I didn't have enough sleep. My bed is too rough and stuff like that. I'm a third chapter in the United States. I live in the future while America sleeps in the past. That's kind of interesting. But generally, I also live in the future, like in this part of the world. Because when the United States wake up, to me already like half a day passed. Attention horse. Thank you so much, my friend. That is the word I was looking for. That's, another way to tell energy vampires, all right? They do things to get attention, either good or bad. Yeah. Wish they did more good, though. So, let's return to our tiny review, all right? Again, we have footage from the Terror Russian facility in Taganrog, basically the same, just a bunch of new updates. There was a big fire reported on this facility, and also the fire continued for several hours. The strike was actually very, very much massive. This one, I'd probably call it a Russian cringe, actually. So this video on your screens was shared by the Russian terrorists themselves, and this is a video of a terror Russian strike in Dnipro, in Ukrainian city of Dnipro. They launched a drone that hit a very, very important military target on Ukrainian territory. So you can see the camera installed on the drone, all right? And these words that you can see on your screen is literally saying tank of sunflower oil, all right? Masla, that's the way we call butter, or sunflower oil. So that's one. That's again the tank of sunflower oil right there. Why do Russian terrorists attack sunflower oil storage in Ukraine? Besides the reason that they are actually terrorists, and that can actually explain everything they're doing in Ukraine, all sorts of their atrocities. It's not because there is a reason behind it. That's literally because Russians are fucking terrorists. They should be dealt with. But we know that there will be time. The time will come when their kids will have to pay reparations until they grow their grandkids, all right? Maybe even longer. What's new in Pokrovsk? Basically, the situation is the same. I studied the situation yesterday. Didn't change much. No significant gains, no significant breakthroughs on neither side. Russians keep sending like wave after wave that gets obliterated by Ukrainian drones, because today we produce tons of those drones. Unfortunately, Russians also produce tons of drones and try to attack our positions, try to find ways to send them and to eliminate our personnel. but the situation doesn't change. Do I have a cut under my eye? I don't know. Could be an eyelash. I will glue it back, I promise, after the stream. Was it something to do with the owners? Actually, no, that was literally a factory of well-known Ukrainian sunflower oil, Olena, that is our brand, and they just decided to attack it because that is literally their strategy. They are attacking Ukrainian food facilities, provisional facilities, different factories producing sunflower oils, producing whatever, bread and stuff, because that is literally Russian strategy. They are terrorists. It's not like they are taking military objects on Ukrainian territory specifically. Their task is to make Ukrainian people suffer, regardless if they're wearing uniform or not, because Russia is a fucking ISIS. That's literally the explanation. Actually, another Russian propagandist and bloody murderer, Markov, in his publication in Telegram, recently said that if we keep striking Kyiv like that, that will, of course, cause a lot of people to leave the town, to move out with their families, trying to find a safer place, and that might either help our army, the terrorist army, to reach its goals, so Ukrainian defense starts collapsing, or it will provoke some kind of response from Ukraine's allies. They literally discuss this in the social media. They literally discuss the genocide of Ukraine in the social media, because to them that is a normal thing, all right, which is not. And I'm sure that there are quite a few people out there in Europe and across the pond that actually support Russian genocide, and they think, like, what's wrong about genocide? Everybody does that. So basically, they are the same, all right? They are made of the same shit. Both people who say that and the Russian terrorists. Again, just so you know. Okay, let's switch to another one, because this one I followed since yesterday. The Russians responded, finally, on the seizure of the Venezuelan tanker Marinera, also known as Bella-1. What is this tanker, generally? So that's a Venezuelan tanker. Please remember this, because it's very important. A lot of people say that it's a Russian tanker. Donald Trump humiliated Russian terrorists by capturing Russian Shadow Fleet tanker. It's a Venezuelan tanker. Venezuela also has its Shadow Fleet. But at the same time, the tanker actually is connected with one of the Russian oligarchs from the temporarily occupied Crimea. And a bunch of sailors on board of this tanker, the personnel, were Ukrainians from the occupied Crimea with Russian passports. That is why Russians were calling the United States to make sure that those Ukrainians that they called the Russian citizens have proper food and stuff, that they are treated well in the United States jail. And they basically talk about this in their official messages. They say Russia demands the United States to make sure that the citizens of terrorist federation are treated humanely, and their rights and interests are respected. At the same time, the White House said that the staff controlling the Marinera or Bella-1 tanker could be actually tried in the United States. So that is according to the spokesperson of the White House. But today we saw some very, very interesting message coming from Marcial Cucurella. That is a CEO of one of the strategic company there in Spain, as far as I remember. He says that on board of Bella-1 that was captured by the US Navy, they found a contraband that was hidden within the construction of this tanker. They found 1.5 tons of gold from Orinoco. They found currency in euro, and they also found components used in controlling the UAVs, which again confirms the fact that the Shadow Fleet tankers are used to launch and control the UAVs. So there's of course a link between this one and the Russian terrorists 100%. We know that Russians cooperated very, very much together with Maduro's regime. But how much reliable is this information? I cannot tell. We gotta wait for more official reports on that, more journalist investigations, because that is literally the only source that I found today, and I'm not sure which data is this conclusion based on. So let's keep that in mind, but also let's keep in mind that's only one source of information, so I cannot very much confirm this. But it's a very, very interesting data, and yeah, exactly. This is very unconfirmed. How would he know this 100%? That is why let's keep that in mind, but also let's keep in mind the fact that this should also be confirmed through other sources. All right, if it's confirmed, if they really had all that stuff on board of Bella-1, again, we remember that they tried to get away, they tried to go to Russia, all right, being pursued by the United States Navy. The Russians sent literally submarine and warship, which again, in some of the previous episodes I talked that the Russians were observing the SOP, all right, the American SOP in terms of seizing the ship in the open sea, learning basically the way the United States Navy and Special Forces operate and stuff like that, because Russians have quite a few of those tankers, as much as 2,000 pessimistically. Okay. -1, because again, yesterday one of them was destroyed in Novorossiysk. Tiny victory. I think it's a good start. It, however, makes sense Venezuela would ship its gold to Moscow. Yeah, according to other reports, for example, coming from Iran, Khamenei also sends his gold and all of his stuff to Russia at this point, just in case. All right. A secured cargo area is one thing, a smuggler's compartment is different. Yeah, 100%, because according to that gentleman, it was hidden within the construction of the tanker. So that is smuggling right there, 100%. Are you worried that the insanity in the rest of the world is distracting from Russia's war of aggression? That is a big risk. On the other hand, look, we are European country. Currently, European nations have their very, very own problems, including Russian aggression, all right? So since Iran or Venezuela or United States, thank God, don't border European countries, the European community is working on solving our internal issues and preparing for the possible Russian invasion. The adulation that President Zelensky gets from around the world must drive Trump crazy when he himself is so much hated. He's envious, 100%. He doesn't like when people talk about other people besides himself, which is again very natural for Donald Trump, for a narcissist. Have you talked about the Russian who was found dead in Cyprus? Did I miss this, my friend? Just a second. I think I had it in my update as well. In Cyprus, yes, I missed it because I'm stupid. In Cyprus, not far from the Russian embassy, a Russian GRU officer, Alexei Panov, became good. The official diagnosis is asphyxiation. He lost his breath, all right, for some reasons unknown. He just decided to check how much time he can survive without breathing, and basically he became better. But GRU is the Russian intelligence agency. It's a military Russian intelligence agency. It's not like, those CC Russian spies from FSB. Those are motherfuckers who go to other countries and spread Novichok, for example. Stuff like that. The two imbeciles that went to Salisbury in the UK, they were from GRU Gesha. Like those two, and basically the reason they were captured so fast was because they were just two dumb GRU agents. All right, they were literally like Russian military. All right, only in intelligence. There's nothing in common between intelligence and Russians, generally speaking, especially GRU, but that's what they call themselves. So that one was eliminated. What the fuck did he do in Cyprus? I mean, what the hell does the Russian military intelligence agent do in Cyprus? I have no idea. Maybe he decided to go to the other side. GRU responsible, yes, that's the reason. Yo, all the best to beautiful Australia. He's still holding his breath. Yeah, I think that he's trying to set new world record. How to not breathe. GRU has a lot of connections in Cyprus and Greece. I agree on that, but we're talking, for example, the diplomatic mission, all right? If there's an embassy, there might be some kind of military attaché and stuff like that. Of course, we know that if we talk about any embassy, all right, in the world, of course, some of that personnel, if not all of them, they are either recruited or they are affiliated with the intelligence of the country they represent. All right. They are what we call legitimate intelligence. All right. The embassies, that is legitimized intelligence. Let's be realistic. But GRU is, how to call it? Their task is sabotage and murder. All right, their task is not like FSB collecting data, collecting intelligence, surveillance, all that stuff. Their task is literally sabotage, death, and shit. So that dude was very, very suspicious. Like the fact that he was affiliated with the embassy is kind of sus. President Zelensky was in Cyprus for the new presidency of the EU. There was a ceremony. Maybe the GRU was stalking him. The GRU and FSB and SVR and all sorts of Russian private military companies, so-called, they do it 24/7. They're all stalking the Ukrainian president all the time, right? They need to know his whereabouts all the time. Intelligence without intelligence. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Good morning. Have you seen Keksbreth announce that Grok will be put into classified Pentagon networks by February? Is it because they want to generate pictures of naked children or something? Because judging from the recent updates that you could observe in the headlines, that's basically the reason why Elon Musk even designed this shit. They said self-termination. Obviously, there were no Russian windows. There were no Russian windows. Again, apparently he just decided to set this world record. He went how much time can I be like that? Turns out he can be like that forever. Unless they're both GRU and FSB. Those are kind of rivaling establishments. They're kind of rivals in the terrorist federation. And basically they have kind of similar, but at the same time different structures. They all have their purpose. For example, FSB is directed into Russia itself, right? It's an internal intelligence. They collect data internally, also counterterrorism and stuff like that. SVR is Russia's external intelligence service. They collect the data externally. That's basically like Russian sleeping agents and stuff like that. Then they have GRU Gasha, like those dumb fucks that are actually terrorists. They are actually planning and executing sabotage, murders, assassinations, like those guys. They are not very much intelligence. They are like sabotage and assassination agency. Good morning. If Grok would learn from Pentagon database, then maybe it could generate accurate looks of aliens. Of course it could, but I don't think that it will happen. What do you make of the recent Transnistrian cut-off? Some people claim it's fake news, but I've seen it circulated everywhere. Yeah, I've seen it circulating everywhere as well. First of all, the Russian, let's call it influence in Transnistria, specifically in that unrecognized quasi little country, is very, very strong. They still keep the military there. And I literally have no idea whether Moldova or Romania can actually do something to them without risking provoking some escalation from Russia. I don't think that stuff will change. Basically, 1992, as far as I remember, the president of Pridnestrovyan Moldavian Republic actually went to Kyiv. He wanted to meet the president of Ukraine and talk about actually connecting this territory to Ukraine But because Ukraine, all the way until 2013 at least, was ruled by the pro-Russian regimes, the president of PMR was taken by the Russian KGB on the streets of Kyiv. How crazy is that? Grok is white trash AI. Grok is very interesting. In my personal opinion, it's a good confirmation that no matter what sort of data you're trading your model on, all right, no matter what sort of trash, no matter what sort of bullshit, but if this AI has literally access to the open data, you can actually receive some legit information, because there were numerous times I asked Grok whether Elon Musk was spreading Russian disinformation, whether he fact-checks his publications and stuff like that. I asked Grok whether Twitter is used by the Russian bot farms, and Grok actually told me legit information. But again, I think that is based on the IP, like where do you come from? Because if you come from, for example, United States, I think that the answer will be different, all right? I saw that Moldova and Ukraine were controlling what goes in and out of Transnistria. Yes, 100%. That's again one of the reasons why Russians wanted to take control of Moldova, why they tried to literally bribe people there during elections, why they tried to conduct the same operation in the informational field, all right, in Moldova, like they did in the United States. They wanted pro-Russian forces because they needed the access to Transnistria. 100%. Currently, the Russian facts in Transnistria are being locked there since 2022. They cannot do anything, literally. So they are basically locked there like Russians in Königsberg, all right. If we want to start the blockade of Königsberg, that's very, very easy to do. Grok was actually pretty legit until Elon broke it. Yeah, that's unfortunately the case. What was on the tanker? So, according to the reports that come from the CEO of I forgot this organization, strategy something. Fuck. I'm sorry, I have to write it down every single time. But according to him, the Bella-1 tanker that was captured, also known as Marinera, contained 1.5 tons of gold from Orinoco, also euro currency, and different components for operating the UAVs. But again, this information should be confirmed from several sources, because that's literally the only source related to this that I managed to find. And one source, as we all know, is not really reliable. But it's something interesting, something worth, I think, to keep in mind. So we will see more reports on that. If it's confirmed, then yeah, that's something worthy. If not, then we will have a confirmation that you just don't trust whatever random messages you see on Twitter. Speaking of the acoustic weaponry used by the Delta Force during the abduction of Maduro, that literally eliminated all sorts of his guards there in Caracas. We already talked about that. Like the real reason why they were literally just, obliterated there wasn't because of the acoustic weaponry. It was because of the Russian general Oleg Makarevich that still resides in Caracas, by the way, with 100 of his little green men. And due to the military training they provided to the Venezuelan troops, that is, trust me, that is the only reason. Because of that amazing Russian skills, Russian expertise, Russian military experience that Venezuelan troops gained from Oleg Makarevich, who is responsible, by the way, for losing Kherson. That was the only major city Russia controlled in 2022, and it was the only major city that Russians lost in 2022, basically. So all that happened literally due to the Russian training of the Venezuelan personnel. What can Russian military train? All right, let's talk about fucking Russian cavalry. Let's talk about Russian meat waves. All right, meat waves are good if you want to take a town in like 5 years, sacrificing 300,000 Russian orcs. It's good if you want that, but if you want some effective ground operation, it's not the case. You better learn something from Ukrainians, all right? What else can Russian teach, actually, other military? Snatching toilets, sink taps, air conditioning units, I don't know, using donkeys in the harsh environment while all your tanks are burning. I don't know, things like that. Drinking vodka, of course, like you don't really need to teach people how to drink vodka. We all know how to do that. Doesn't mean that we should, right? But that's basically what Russians can teach people, how to, I don't know, how to keep their hospitals without running water, how to keep their schools falling apart, and how to put all of their money into production of drones for killing Ukrainians. That is something that Russians can teach. I don't know, how to recruit convicts, all right, and how to send them to a foreign country because you don't have enough personnel, because turns out that not all people in the terrorist federation want to be literally wasted in the Russian meat assaults. How to send them to the foreign land, give them medals for bravery, and then welcome them home and let them rape and murder Russian citizens. Russians can teach all that, but it doesn't mean that Russians have some actually good expertise. Okay, Russian Spetsnaz. Let's talk about Russian Spetsnaz. I like talking about Russian Spetsnaz. I had a chance to see them, all right, from distance. Just a bit on 24th of February 2022. I can tell you about Russian Spetsnaz. They cannot tell about this because I'm here and they're not. Isn't it shit fountain season right now? It kinda is. Like every day in Russia is a shit fountain season, my friend. Trust me on that. Remember that 64-kilometer convoy to Kiev, the one that stalled? Yeah. The reason it stalled was literally because they couldn't really understand the logistic requirements to deliver all that shit to Kiev, because their main idea was to literally drop it, deploy it from the airplanes that never landed in Hostomel. And also, they were literally ambushed there, and basically that's it. Again, winter, they need to run their machines all the time to make sure they don't get spoiled, all right, that they generate electricity, that, to keep them warm. And also running out of fuel at the same time. So that's basically the answer. It's not because, people who don't really understand this, they say that Russian convoy got stuck because of some shit like Rasputitsa or whatever. They stuck in the fields. They didn't. They were literally going down the highway. And then they were fucked, all right? That's the reason why that convoy got obliterated before it even arrived. I hope that answers your question. Training convicts is another issue, of course, because you have to train them how to ride a horse or a donkey. There are different approaches to this, right? Because donkeys and horses, you need to know how to ride them in different ways. They have some specifics, all right? How to keep yourself straight, all right, so you don't break your spine while riding horse. The donkey, I don't even know because I never tried. But Russians have to now find trainers who are actually acquainted with riding donkeys and horses and train Russian convicts. Imagine Russian convicts from a fucking jail who spent 3 years sitting there for a rape or a theft or whatever. And now they also, besides learning how to operate firearms and all that stuff, they also have to learn how to drive a fucking horse. I remember that first miles-long convoy. The first got hit, the last got hit, and they were pinned in place on the road. Yes, that's how it works. Russians are very good at cleaning the roads. They have different machinery that actually does that for them. So you hit several cars or trucks, generally vehicles, in the beginning, in the end of the convoy, and basically they're locked, but they still have vehicles that are designed to clean the roads so the vehicles can then pass. But even despite that fact, we all know what happened to the Russian convoy. It got fucked. What problems are Belarus facing? So their dictator, the mustachio potato man, also known as Lukashenko, recently hit his fucking head against the ice. And now the Belarusians cannot tell, was it for good or for worse, all right? Because they don't know what to expect from him now. Did it make Lukashenko worse? Did it spoil him, or did it change something in his freaking head? That's probably the biggest problem for them at this point. The Russians still use those long convoys, not anymore. They don't use that. They're actually pretty good at trying not to concentrate all of their vehicles and personnel in the same spot. They try to avoid putting all the eggs into the same basket because the saturation of the front line of the gray area with drones is absolutely insane. Literally everyone and everything is targeted 24/7, which is, again, something that NATO armies are unfortunately not ready for, right? That is why, again, they should cooperate more with Ukrainians. and Russians don't concentrate everyone in the same area because it's very, very easy to use one single drone to eliminate a full car of Russian cannon fodder, and they know about that. Took them several years to learn, but unfortunately they already know about this. Even if you have one of those fine Ukrainian toilets, correction, Italian, all right, or German, sometimes Polish, like those are the main, I would say, brands, all right, franchises of plumbing that Ukrainians are using. We have our own, of course, but we prefer something high quality. German plumbing, Italian plumbing works well. Polish plumbing also not bad. Yeah. Without plumbing, you're still shedding on the ground 100%. And also, besides that, I suspect that Russians may sometimes use those crappers, as basins to baptize their children. I haven't seen that with my own eyes, but I've heard rumors. Where are the bombs hitting Kiev coming from? So there are several sources of the missile threats. First of all, the land platforms, land launch sites, like for example Kapustin Yar, that's where Russians launch their ballistic missiles from. That's Orthodox Russian Oreshnik Shed, the missile of mass disinformation. Submarines, missile-carrying vessels in the Black Sea Fleet, they are not based in Crimea anymore. As you probably know, they decided to GTFO, but sometimes they sail from the Novorossiysk, somewhere closer to like Azov Sea, to the middle of the Black Sea, where they're sure that there's no Ukrainian sea babies or other drones, and then they literally launch their missiles during the massive strike. And also Russian strategic aviation, because despite the fact that they lost 1/3 of their strategic aviation fleet during that absolutely amazing anal sex session known as Spiderweb operation. Yes, besides that, unfortunately, they still have several like those old turboprops like Tu-95 that carry the cruise missiles, and they launched their cruise missiles from over the Caspian Sea. That's their primary launch site in terms of strategic Russian aviation. I would love to know how Russians do logistics above the company level and soldier replacement processes. Let's imagine we are talking about a battalion of Russian troops. When they need to deploy their troops to Ukraine, of course, they put them on a train somewhere. Railroad is most massively used nowadays, and always basically by the Russian terrorists. They deliver them somewhere to this more or less safe territory. They get deployed, spread in companies, spread in platoons, and on the level of platoons, they start delivering those troops to their positions. Okay. Amazon Marketplace, thank you very much. The recent chat I received from you, my friends, was wrong. Anyways, they understand that they cannot deliver like huge armies in those columns anymore because it literally doesn't work. They changed that strategy. already in like summer 2022, when they realized that those magnificent Russian columns literally burn brighter than Russian refineries in 2025. So that is one of the reasons why their tactics is basically known as tactics of the smaller groups. Doesn't mean that they use like 2-3 men. Small groups doesn't mean that they use like a few men. The main idea behind this is spreading their personnel over a huge territory, and also using the fire teams of their convicts, mercenaries, whatever, over and over and over again. All right. So even though they send a group of 5, 7, 20 men, they do it frequently and throughout the day. All right. So they can literally send a whole platoon or a whole company in a single day. Just a second, my friends. I have to reply. Family business. Okay, all right. My lady is passing greetings to all of you, my dear friends and family. Just a second, I gotta check something. All right, I have like 5 phones here. Jesus. No idea. Okay. I'm back with you. I'm sorry. Steven Seagal was wanted in US for assault, sexual assault, and underage involvement, amongst other charges, I believe. I will pass your greetings. Thank you very much. Again, as I already mentioned, I think that that is kind of requirement, all right, if you want to be a pro-Russian white power Nazi degenerate, you have to have some kind of dirty background, like Scott Ritter, for example. Looking at those pro-Putin far-right followers in different countries, we can see them. Quite a few of those had some shady, ugly shit, all right, that they committed. I worked for TriStar Engineering at Puget Sound Navy Shipyard. I worked on the USS Seawolf. Seawolf, is that like a US submarine? Please let me know. If you have more than 2 phones, it's a good idea to color code them. Those are not my phones. It's like one of those moments when you bring your lady to her job and she's like, oh, by the way, I forgot my phones. Please reply to this one and this one and this one, and everything will be fine. Scott Cryptor has no real ideology. He's just a PDF file. Yes, he is, I know. Russianism is actually an ideology, my friends. It's an ideology of degenerates. And some of them are so proud of that. Great video. Last night talking to Dylan. What a great person Dylan is. Yes, absolutely. I was wondering who the other pedo bastard who was kissing Putler's ass was. Scott? Yeah, that's the dude. He soon will have all of his friends there in Moscow. What century is Russia living in? No plumbing. Well, as one of our legendary friends there in the chat said just a couple of days ago, both Putin and Peter the Great have one specific thing in common. They both try to bring Russia into 18th century, which I find absolutely hilarious. USS Seawolf is a titanium submarine, one of the 3 that we have in the US Navy. Yeah, those are kick-ass, actually. They carry missiles, including, as far as I remember, also anti-ship missiles. So a bunch of torpedoes, a nuclear sub, right? Also, yeah, Elon's dad is there. Absolutely. Soon they will all organize the tiny club of fascists, tyrants, and pedophiles there in Russia. Putin will finally have joy meeting his good friends. Imagine like Bashar Assad, Khamenei, Yanukovych wearing all those wife beaters with like dried fish and vodka, sitting on a kitchen, listening to balalaika, enjoying the snowy wonderland and stuff like that. And we will see it very, very soon. And also, they will be joined by some very, very smart people, most probably, like Elon Musk, maybe. Who knows? His dad will definitely keep the spot warm for his son, 100%. In the time of Peter the Great, the Russian army also used donkeys and horses. Now I see. Actually, I never thought about that one. Because, I'm not a big expert in history of war, alright? But now it makes sense. I've been on the USS. This word, by the way, I never knew how to read it, alright? So I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher it. I was a kid on a field trip. How do you spell Ulysses? Ulysses? Guys, let me know. I need to learn this one because I will not be able to sleep tonight. I wonder if Iran will be free soon. They just need to make the police court out. I asked Iranians about this one. They say, look, police is already completely demoralized. Police doesn't do anything. They have an army of those so-called Islamic guards, between 10 and 25,000 men. Those are the murderers, all right? Those are completely brain dead killers who literally don't give a shit. They will keep protecting Khamenei regime. They don't give a fuck who they shoot, people, because to them people are actually like cattle, all right? Like to the American ICE agents, for example. That's literally, or for Russians, all right? For Russian police, people are cattle. They just don't matter. So those are the problem, because they have this big army, 20,000. That's literally how much? Let's say 7 brigades. That's a lot. 7 brigades of armed goons, and at the same time, not a lot of people in Iran actually have weapons. The few groups in Iran that have weapons, first of all, Kurds, because in the Iranian society, Kurds are known as very brave people. They always, like rise and fight for truth and stuff like that. They are very, very much respected in the Iranian society. They are very polite, very friendly, but when it comes to protecting rights and freedom, Kurds just take weapons and go. The problem is that's literally like one city, one Kurdish town, all right? So they are not enough. That's one of the problems. The other problem is in order to obtain weapons, you have to actually go and take control over the... you can go to Google Translate and get a pronunciation. Thank you so much, my friend. I completely forgot about this one. Yes, absolutely. Returning to Iran, you have to actually go and take control of ammo storages, you have to attack military bases, you have to take control over the police departments, which I think they might actually do, but we don't have 99% of vision on the situation, on what is going on there in Iran right now. All right, due to the informational blockade. So I've been asked, by the way, several times, how we did it in Ukraine. And I'm saying that it doesn't matter that you don't have much weapons, okay? Because if we talk about Ukrainian protest, I will tell you this. So, last days of Ukraine's resistance, last days of Maidan revolution, the Berkut, the Ukrainian Islamic Guards, right, that we had, that punishing force, the special force police, they were almost starting to clear the Maidan from the protesters. The situation was very, very bad. That was literally the situation when only few people left on Maidan. They were extremely tired. They were being shot at. The snipers were shooting at the protesters. And the company, the so-called Black Company of Berkut, armed with AKM rifles, that 7.62 millimeter, started literally eliminating people. They opened fire on the protesters. So that was the moment when literally the whole Maidan revolution could just get dispersed, all right? Instead, we had just a few people on the Maidan armed with rifles, all right? Because in Ukraine, you cannot have handguns. I will trash some of the mega, firearm supporters who say, fuck Ukraine, Ukrainians are not even allowed to have handguns. Look, we are so fucking sexy with our Glocks and shit. They can literally suck my cock, because in Ukraine you can buy rifles. I want to see a motherfucker fighting against a Russian company of Spetsnaz or infantry with his fucking Glock, alright? He will suck every dick in that company. In Ukraine you can have rifles. You can have all sorts of rifles. You can register them on yourself. You can literally buy the whole arsenal of rifles and store them in your very own house. And of course use them in case you are invaded or whatever. So, returning to the revolution, there were just a few Ukrainians with actually rifles, with registered weapons on the Maidan. And as soon as police opened fire, and there were, I don't know, approximately 100 policemen armed with firearms. There were snipers, there were machine gunners. No, I cannot say that there were machine gunners, but there were actually policemen armed with rifles, with AKM. So as soon as they opened fire at the protesters fired back, which caused all the police force to fucking retreat immediately, all right? All the police force that was getting closer to the Maidan, preparing to the final cleaning of the Maidan from the protesters, they fucking all ran away. They retreated. As soon as like one fell down, second fell down, that is reality. That's what happened late February 2014. So basically, can you carry submachine guns like Uzi or MP5? You can if they don't fire bursts. According to Ukrainian legislation, you should only carry carbines. All right, the weapons that you have should not be able to fire bursts. You can literally have like M60 if it only fires, in a single shot mode. So generally, the reason why those punishing forces like Berkut or Islamic Guards, the reason why they're so atrocious is literally because they understand that they will never receive the same resistance, right? That they will never face the symmetric resistance from people, because people are not allowed to carry anything, all right? Therefore, even that tiny group of armed and brave Kurds can actually change a lot. Because when you take control over a military base, even a tiny base, all right, you have several handguns, several rifles. You take control over that terrorist police station, you already have a couple more rifles and a bunch of ammo. You take control over 2 other police stations, you have more, all right? And that is how you do that. That's basically how we did that in Ukraine. Katya says, tell us how you really feel. I won't, because Mega will literally sue me, for moral damage, all right? Because when they start bragging about their fucking firearms, that is so cringy. I've seen several guys bragging about like Makarov pistol, 9x18mm. That shit, fuck, they never used them on the real war. And that shit sucks balls so much. I had a misfortune of using that since 2015 on my deployments, and they suck balls. They really do, because that's like Russian copy-paste, Russian bad copy-paste of a good Walther PPK. Why the fuck would you get something like PM, the pistol of masochist, alright, also known as pistol of Makarov, when you can get yourself a proper Walther PPK, alright, and use it? James Bond never complained, alright? That fucking culture of like, fuck, I love guns and shit like that. You love guns until you actually have to use them, alright? You love guns until you actually... I love guns because I generally like tech, all right? I like simulators, I like cars, I like vehicles, I like everything related to tech, to electronics, mechanics, and stuff like that. I love guns because guns are like a masterpiece of engineering that was designed in the medieval times and evolved all this time into something that we can call more or less ideal, all right, in terms of exterminating bad guys. But that's the only reason why I like guns since I was a kid. That's not fetish. That's literally my own, I would say, professional interest. That's it. I hate shit, like, fuck, make guns part of our culture and stuff. Really? We don't have handguns in Ukraine, and we never had, as far as I remember, we never had even a single school shooting in Ukraine. You have guns when you understand that you live in the society where you're required to have it in order to survive. So, what's the point of like being proud of that? That's again my personal opinion. Police should have guns because police is designed to protect people. At least that's what police should do, all right, according to the law. Military should have guns and stuff like that. Handguns, I don't know. Reconnaissance should have handguns, 100%. Counter-espionage services should have handguns because spies usually don't wear bulletproof vests, they don't wear armor. Making a handgun like part of a culture, it's kind of fucked up. I don't know. We were with my friends having a beer in Washington, D.C. I told you that story in 2008. We had a beer with the guys, like an open-air cafeteria, and there's like a bunch of people sitting next to us. They were celebrating something, and they were very fucking loud. And I'm asking my friends, like, should we ask them, should I ask them to behave a bit quieter, because I cannot hear the conversation. They go, no, you cannot do that. Why? He goes, because some of them might have a gun. Fuck, in Ukraine it's so easy. In Ukraine you ask somebody to behave generally, all right? If they are drunk and aggressive, you have a brawl, you have like a tiny fight, and everything's fine, all right? Regardless of who won this fight, everything's fine. That's like in the most critical situation. It's not like we go fucking Wild West right there. Makarov or Walter PPK, I think it's not even a choice, all right? It's not even an option. If you want to know, do I generally support the idea of civilians having firearms? All right, I do if we are talking about protecting your house, if we're talking about defending your ground. All right, yeah, you can keep a shotgun somewhere. That's completely proper thing, in my personal opinion, because again, in Ukraine you can also have shotguns, you can have rifles and shotguns, all right? And besides that, you can have some shitty traumatic pistol, gas pistols, gas shooting pistols, rubber bullet pistols, whatever. I never even looked at that crap. But you can have rifles, you can have shotguns. You can use them, of course, to protect your house. All right. Concealed carry, yes, probably. All right. But again, that requires much deeper understanding on who is reliable enough to carry those. Okay, how exactly do you tell that the dude who like passed all the tests and everything else and buys a handgun does it to protect himself and his family somewhere at a gas station buying a hot dog instead of committing a mass shooting somewhere in a library or hospital? How exactly do you know? I have no idea, and frankly speaking, I cannot even imagine how to do that. But on the other hand, like, I don't know, it's a very, very hard topic, all right? Maybe police should work better. Maybe police should have better financing, better training, better treatment from the government, so police can actually protect people wherever they are. On the other hand, if you're ambushed, you're fucking dead. If you're ambushed, you're ambushed, all right? If you got into an ambush or if you got into a well-prepared robber attack, oh my god, robbery, all right? If they commit this crime against you, the prepared and planned crime, then again, we gotta understand that we don't have much chance to survive this stuff. That's just reality, all right? We can be more or less prepared to such situations, but if a criminal plans something, then there's a very, very high chance that this crime will be committed, and if it's planned well, then that they will succeed. Same with the ambush, like literally, if you're ambushing, for example, a Russian convoy, or they ambush you, if you got into the ambush, right, instead of evading it, then your chances are very, very small, literally. We had a lot of training on how to like survive during the ambush, and every single time the instructors told us that, guys, if you are ambushed, the chance that you will survive this shit, they're very, very tiny. Of course, doesn't mean that you have to just, surrender and just accept your destiny. You still have to keep fighting, but just keep in mind, all right? Don't say that we didn't warn you. Same with the crimes. If someone is planning something, all right, then the chance that they will fail is, of course, much lower than if it's some kind of sociopath that just parked his car and decided to rob some random place. And the point of all that is, of course, if they plan some kind of robbery, of course, they plan this in a way that they will evade the law enforcement. So how to predict that this crime happens somewhere? Again, I have no idea. It's been nearly 2 hours and I just realized you have your... Yes, I know. Yesterday I took it off because I wanted to modify it just a bit, all right? Because every single time I hang it back, I also have to hang my patches. I need to find a way to keep them attached all the time. Did Ukrainians break through Russian lines in Kupyansk? What I know, all right, recently, I only have the information that I obtained 2 hours ago before this stream. What I know personally is that Ukrainians are eliminating the Russians that are covered in that hospital inside of Kupyansk, and also they liberated the town hall. And again, Kupyansk is bigger than Pokrovsk. Not dramatically, just a tiny bit bigger, but Kupyansk is bigger than Pokrovsk. Kupyansk is almost 13 square miles. Imagine this insane megapolis populated by 5 million people, right, according to the Russian propaganda. 12 square miles, actually. How does anyone survive? If we're talking about ambush, that's literally 90% chance, all right? If we're talking about some crime scene, pretty much the same. Just tuning in, what was found on the tanker? To be short, there is a report coming from one of, I would say, authoritative persons who says that according to his information, on board of this tanker, they found 1.5 tons of gold. They found currency that was also smuggled, we're talking euro, and they also found components for operating drones. How reliable is this information? Hard to tell because it only comes from one source, and we need more sources to either confirm or disconfirm. All right, so I delivered this information because I found it, and I'm also warning that we need to find more confirmation on this. But because this information is very interesting, I decided to share it with you. If you're Al Capone, okay, you may need a gun to protect yourself, but the average person is usually fine having a phone for protection. Like in Ukraine, we also have a lot of discussions between, for example, people who support the idea of having like handguns, all right, for concealed carry, and people who say that generally we don't need the guns, we need more effective police, all right, patrolling our streets. And those discussions will be there, you know, even our grandchildren will be taking part of those discussions, because that's something literally eternal, all right, it never ends. And I can say that there are good points made by both sides. Because again, let's be objective. You cannot just wait until the criminal, you know, you cannot wait while a criminal is attacking, robbing, raping, or killing you. All right, you cannot just stand there and wait until police arrives and saves you, because it doesn't work like that in real situations. In real situations, when you are in, for example, when you find yourself in the middle of a crime, you know, with armed robbers and stuff like that, or just crazy people, maniacs armed with whatever, knives, handguns, you tell me, and you realize that actually life is very, very fragile, all right, to rely on some other people. So in such cases, of course, you would prefer to have something to protect yourself. Another way to protect yourself, which I by the way, find working the best, all right, as a former policeman, is evading dangerous situations as much as possible. Which isn't hard. Like, literally, you're going home, call your guys, call your family, say that you're heading home. You find yourself in front of a dark house, dark staircase and shit, somewhere in the deserted place, all right, no people around. Call one of your friends, say either to go down, pick you up, or that you are coming up, so they are aware about your whereabouts and stuff. Like, those are things that you should think about 100%, because not all the environments we live at are safe, secure, not everywhere the police is present and stuff. We know all that. At the same time, of course, you cannot avoid all the bad situations. They will keep happening, all right? As long as the criminals are alive, they will keep happening. That is why, of course, we need to have something to protect ourselves if we find ourselves in some crazy situation, all right? Or getting kidnapped, for example. So it's like a very, very complex topic, my friends. Absolutely avoiding danger is first on every list, 100%. But even though we can try to avoid danger as much as possible, still shit happens. Seriously. If it is true, I cannot help wonder if it was Iranian or Chinese, less likely Russian. Bella-1, also known as Marinera, left Iran in, I believe, either August or October, and all this time they were making their way to Venezuela, where they couldn't dock because of that operation. So they decided to GTFO, and when they were pursued by the US Navy, they decided to GTFO towards Russia. So they were captured not far from Scotland, all right? Like, not far, relatively not far from Scotland. And considering that they were heading from Iran, it means that most probably that was Iranian stuff, could be Iranian stuff, because again, the departure was from Iran. That's like, if we think about it logically, because they never docked in Venezuela, from what I can tell. My grandfather was a hunter in Germany. Every other day the police called him to shoot a traffic accident deer. They didn't want to fill the documents for firing the rounds. I know what it feels like, my friend, because all the way until 2022, even though we had hybrid invasion, we had fucking artillery, tank attacks, shellings, MLRS, all that stuff on the front line. But if that stuff, if you have to discharge your weapon somewhere outside of the anti-terrorist operation, you would have to file like 3 kilometers of documentation. So I know exactly what it feels like, especially in police. But since 2022, it's kind of easier, all right? Because in most cases, you're not even required to literally carry your service weapon. You can carry like whatever. Fog can be quite disorientating in the dark. Walked a half a mile back to my crummy in the dark, foggy night. Freaky. Yeah, and especially considering that as you walk, your imagination starts immediately, like dragging all sorts of vampires out of that fog, because we're human, all right? Because our brains do that every single time. And like your eyesight is trying to capture anything in the darkness, in the fog, that looks like a human being, because that's how we operate. And you can literally imagine all sorts of crazy stuff. Happens to all of us, my friend. I don't think Russia will be getting anything from Iran soon. Hopefully. One thing that I can tell you for sure is that the personnel on Iranian military factories producing drones is kind of on a vacation since early January, which is good. You can purchase a rechargeable candle. Yes, those things can work as a stun gun. The question is, how effective is it? Because the stun gun should be able to neutralize the threat, all right? It's like on the internet, you can find a lot of guys who say, check out what I have. Like this hat, okay, it has like this 100-gram weight, all right, on the back of the head. And you can literally use it as a baton. So when somebody attacks you, just like slap the living shit out of him. So that is something that can actually kill you. Because if your enemy is armed with a knife, for example, then slapping the living shit out of a knife-wielding person, especially angry and a bit sociopathic, is a direct and one-way road to the other side. Okay, because otherwise you would only get deprived of your wallet. Now you get deprived of your kidney and liver and like 10 liters of your blood, so you're dead. Or for example, like look at this lighter. This lighter can freaking set a paper on fire. All right, it can burn the mustache on the face of a criminal trying to rob you. So that's another one-way ticket, all right, to the other side. That stuff, if you want to have a stun gun or something like that, should be able to neutralize your enemy. It means that you stun your enemy, the enemy literally lies down on the floor, like shaking just a bit, and is unable to do anything, at least within like 20-30 seconds. That is enough for you to GTA fall from that location. That's how it works. Vitaly, hello, my friend. Oh my god, it's been a while actually since the last time I saw you on the stream. You can make a weapon of anything basically. Yeah, I agree on that. All those like Kubatan, all right? Kubatan. Poke the enemy, alright, it will hurt. Really? I mean, I know it will hurt. It will hurt like a bitch. It will make your knife or gun-wielding enemy just a bit angrier, alright? Just a bit angrier to cross the line. People say, like, shit, I always carry a very, very sharp pen or pencil. Did you even try to like poke somebody with like plastic pen? That shit breaks immediately. You cannot punch through a bone or a skull with a plastic pen. It doesn't work. Okay. Kubatan. The shit hurts. I agree. I know, I tried. The shit really hurts. But the knife hurts even more than that. There's a very, very cool channel called Mac Dojo. Check it out. I have a lot of unfortunate experience, again, as a policeman. A lot of unfortunate experience with, those like self-defenders, as we call them. Trying to get into trouble with local gopniks, being armed with like pen and stuff. And then you have to pick up this idiot, collect his teeth, call EMS, and that's kind of ugly. Who you been poking with your lucky strike? Luckily for me, I'm only poking my mouth so far. And the craziest shit about the martial arts is that literally, for example, you have like that master of kung fu that can move rocks with his mind, all right, at least he says so. And he says, shit, I will teach you how to be a man. Or not a kung fu. Imagine like a veteran of Ukraine Special Force with like 55 years of service in Afghanistan, in Vietnam, and he knows shit, He's been through some, all right? And he will teach you how to just, use your mind bullets to literally obliterate your enemies. And being a not very confident teenager who is like often bullied in the school, of course, you attend the courses and pay big money, all right? And then he teaches you how to literally use the contactless combat and stuff and like throw shit around. And then because you are convinced that you have those magnificent powers and you're basically like Batman, all right, only without a suit, you get your ass in the trouble and you're fucked. And it happens all the time. In Ukraine, I remember such cases as well because, again, we have a lot of like experienced Shifu, all right, who say, I will make you an alpha man, dude, all right? I will teach you how to have a proper posture, how to speak, all right, so the people are listening to you. I will teach you, how to make all of the chicks in that bar yours for a night and stuff. And you will literally turn into this alpha beast, all right? And it will only cost you like $139.99. And then he teaches you all that stuff, and because you're convinced that you are a superhero, that you're basically second after Rambo, all right, you get yourself into a trouble and you are fucked. What do you think about Kira Rudik? I know her through like third people. She's kind of nice. She was never known. She's kind of naive, all right? She kind of is. But at the same time, she was never noticed participating or involved in any sort of corruption schemes, corruption scandals. So a lot of people actually respect Kira. And Iranians would find her name very, very funny, actually. Does Ukraine have SWAT teams? Yes, we have TOR, that is a tactical operative company. In the police system, in the patrol police, we have CORD, that is Корпус оперативно-раптової дії, basically like SWAT. It was trained by the actual US SWAT instructors and veterans. And also we have Omega in the structure of the National Guard of Ukraine. Those are also trained like in the same direction. CQB and stuff, and basically that's it, like those three. Have I ever seen any Gurkhas in Ukraine? No. I've never seen Gurkhas. I've seen Indian doctors, for example, in the military hospital of the armed forces of Ukraine. There are still a lot of Indian doctors, Indian medical students who actually help save lives of wounded Ukrainians. I've seen them quite a lot. What about Batmobile? You are invincible. I think Sanctioned Divan can talk more about Batmobiles. Okay. Every time I hear someone teach someone else about how to be a man, I think of that guy as a joke, obviously. Absolutely. Like, there is a bunch of videos. For example, please remind me, what's the name of this actor? He's very, very famous for starring as one of the mafia guys in like United States 20s or 30s. He is always wearing like this, cap and those old-fashioned clothes, and he's like, stone ice cold, And they have a lot of videos on YouTube, for example, taking this dude as an example, and they say, this is the proper way to make other people listen to you, because this is how this man did it in the movie. All right. It's not an old movie. I think there were like episodes or something like that just years ago. He used this rule to make mafia leaders listen to him, or he used this 3-second rule to make people... No, not Brando, not Capone, the American actor. Or is he a British actor? I think he's American actor. Like literally, it was 2000s, I think. Gangs of New York or something like that. I might be wrong. Maybe not Gangs of New York, but, so I will ask the one who always knows the answer. The one, the only, the almighty ChatGPT.
Hey there. Great to have you here.
Hello, ChatGPT. So we have another stream here with our dear friends and family there in the chat. We are trying to recall the name of the actor who was starring in the movies about like gangsters in the United States in 2000s. The movie was made in around 2000s. He's always portrayed wearing, that old-fashioned hat, old-fashioned clothes. He's also known for being like ice cold, like alpha man. And also on YouTube, there's a lot of videos taking him as an example and trying to explain how to act like an alpha man, like that dude. Can you tell us his name, please?
Absolutely. It sounds like you're describing Jason Statham. He's definitely no... All right, so it sounds like you're describing a pretty iconic sort of gangster movie actor from the early 2000s, and I think you're talking about Daniel Craig in the movie Road to Perdition. He had that sort of old school hat, a very stoic vibe. And yeah, a lot of people do look at him in that role as a kind of an alpha male figure. So that's probably the guy you're thinking of.
Definitely not Daniel Craig, definitely not Jason Statham. He has blue eyes, hair, not bald, stone cold face.
All right, that helps narrow it down a little bit. So, not Daniel Craig, not Jason Statham. We're talking blue eyes, definitely not bald, and that kind of stone cold, old fashioned gangster vibe from the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure you're probably thinking of someone like Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York. He definitely had that very intense, ice cold presence, and he's often cited as kind of like a alpha personality in that role. So, that might be what you're looking for.
Thank you so much, my dear ChatGPT, but it's not Daniel Day-Lewis 100%. He is portrayed as a good character, all right, in that movie, even though he's like a gangster or something.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. So we are talking about someone who maybe have that stone cold vibe, but is actually the good guy in the movie, even though he's kind of in that gangster role. So I think we might be getting closer. Let me think for a second. I mean, if we're talking early 2000s and it's a gangster movie and he's got blue eyes, I wonder if maybe you're thinking of someone like Leonardo DiCaprio in something like Catch Me If You Can or Gangs of New York, where he's not exactly a bad guy, but he's kind of in that world. So maybe it's him. Let me know if that rings a bell.
Definitely not DiCaprio. Definitely not DiCaprio. However, the very actor is very, very similar to him. We are narrowing it down 100%.
Okay, I love that we're getting closer. So definitely not DiCaprio, but someone kind of in that ballpark and around the same era. I'm going to guess that you might be thinking of Jude Law in something like Road to Perdition. He kind of has a blue-eyed, sort of icy stare too, and he's not the main character, but he's definitely in that vibe in that era. So maybe it's Jude Law. Let me know if we got it.
Okay, we will keep searching. Thank you so much, dear ChatGPT. Thank you for your wisdom. Lots of love from our pro-Ukrainian family and friends there in the chat, and glory to Ukraine.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'm glad we could at least narrow it down a little bit. And if you keep thinking about it, I'm sure you'll land on the name, and definitely sending lots of support and love right back to you and yours. Take care.
Definitely not those guys. Definitely. It's literally every single time I'm opening this YouTube, all right, and I can see his face already, and they go like 3-minute, 3-second rule that helps anybody respect and listen to you. Sigma males, all right, all that stuff. Not Jason Statham, not, my God, Cillian Murphy. Let me check, maybe it's him. Yes, that's the dude. That's the dude, my friends. That's him. Absolutely. So yeah, he's Irish, yes. That's the guy. And on YouTube, you can find like gazillion videos saying the 3-second rule that immediately makes people respect you, all right? And they analyze, the scenes from the movie, like how exactly it was, how it works psychologically on other people. So one thing that people always miss is that the only reason the people react like that to this actor or his character is because the script writer told them to. It's not because it actually works in the real life. If you act like that in the real life, you will look fucking ridiculous. But it's still funny nonetheless. It's still like interesting to check those videos time to time. Peaky Blinders. Yes, yes, that's the one, my friend. The contactless combat cringe. Oh yeah. But again, we named like 100 different actors and movies, gangster related and stuff. What people are watching these days? I mean, I like Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer. Yes, 100%. And there, Tony also says that AI should not be your friend. Check out Ex Machina. All right. Yesterday we watched this movie with my ladies, literally about a very freaking tricky AI-powered robotic woman, very deceiving and very, very cunning. Tell me if you watched this one. It's absolutely insane, the way she was like, manipulating that poor dude. Okay, my dear friends, I have oh my god, I have so many messages to respond, so I will most probably be ending this stream. We'll be wrapping up. Yeah, Ex Machina, 100%. I knew that you watched this one, Tony. I will be wrapping up this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for staying with me. Big thanks to all the moderators and also members of the channel. And also big thanks to all the legendary people over here, all right, in this list. Big thanks to everyone who supports my brigade, Rubizh, the legendary Holstomal Brigade. Big thanks to everyone for their donations. We are almost there, my friends. We almost collected almost 9,000 out of 11. So just a bit and we will be there. And the car will be sent to my guys in Pokrovsk. So with that, again, thank you so much. You always inspire me for making new episodes. Develop and become better than I am. That's only because of you, my friends. Treat yourself with something good traditionally, and we'll see you later. Be safe. Bye-bye.